Hello, friendly neighborhood nerds. If you want to hear interviews from industry pros, get first looks, and have access to endless comic content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell!
What's up, friendly neighborhood nerds? This is Judah Rad, and I'm here with Robo Strange and Respawn. And today we have a very, very special guest. She's a comics writer and essayist. She is the writer and creator of the GLAAD and Eisner-nominated series Kim and Kim, as well as Eternity Girl. She currently resides in Manhattan. Not yours. Sorry, Vagrant Queen humor, my bad. She's written for Black Mask, Boom, DC, Dark Horse, Valiant, Oni, Marvel, IDW, and pretty much everybody else. Today she is on our show. Welcome, Magdalene Visaggio. How are you doing today?
Hello.
Doing good. Thank you for having me. I'm very glad to be here.
We are very glad to have you.
I'm just going to jump right in and say this week I really enjoyed reading Doctor Mirage. Fucking out of this world. What was it like working on that title?
That was a really, really... Once it was going, it was a really, really great experience. Getting it over the plate at Valiant was a little bit of a nightmare. Other than that, it got complicated, but we did go forward with my original vision for the story. I got to do the book that I wanted to do. And the thing that was really cool about working with Valiant, as opposed to working with DC and Marvel, which, another place where you're in someone else's sandbox, Valiant was all about, or is all about, but in my case specifically, it was all about just we want to not repeat ourselves. We want to push forward. So that means that I had an immense amount of freedom to kind of break the character, which was my, goal going in. Because I was a really big fan of Jen Van Meter's run on the character. Her two trades with Roberto Del Toro are fantastic, but everything felt very centric around Gwen. Something about Gwen, trying to do something for Gwen. And me and my editor on that, Lisa, came to the decision very, very early on that Gwen was just not going to be a presence, really. And that this story would be about moving on, about what happens when, the one for whom nobody's ever really gone loses someone genuinely for real. So the whole point was okay, so we're going to transition out of those stories and into something else. If we ever get to do more, I have future plans.
Ooh, that's awesome.
Do you mind if I'm kind of curious now. You piqued my interest on what were some of the difficulties for getting it across the plate. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
But I was working with, and I did not see eye to eye. And I just felt like I was getting the runaround for a while. It was a frustrating experience, but we all worked through it. We got me and Valiant got on the same page.
Yep.
Awesome.
I feel like there was some miscommunication going on in terms of what certain people were supposed to be doing in terms of
continuity stuff.
No, not in continuity. In terms of editorial hierarchies and decision making, and someone was waiting for the go ahead that they didn't have to wait for and stuff. It was
I see.
Yeah.
I think there was.
We were kind of in a rebuilding year when I was.
It was that was the year when DMG took over, I think. So.
They took over a little before that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Really, okay. They took over, and I think just as we were starting work on the book, but I don't. But yeah, that was absolute, just wonderful experience. Nick knocked it out of the park. Me and Nick had a conversation really early on about art direction, and I always like to make sure my artists understand that if they have a better way to get from panel 1 to the end of the page, they're free to do that as long as it accomplishes the page goal. I think the two artists that I've worked with who I guess were the most aggressive about the freedom that offered were Nick and Sunny Lou on Eternity Girl, both of whom just like, defied my stage directions left and right. It was great because they were never wrong. And we told me and Nick also like decided early on, we were like, we want this to feel like old Steve Ditko Doctor Strange, but don't look like it, just feel like it, have the same kind of mind-bending sense, but with an additional 60 years of comics technique behind it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I describe it. I was trying to like recommend it to some people in terms of tone and thinking about all those psychedelic type of like 70s comics. So you mentioned that you have some ideas if you can keep writing that character. We were talking before this interview about the series that Mirage has like showed up in, so Shadow Man, Exo. What crossovers would you want to do, if any, if you were to continue with Mirage?
My favorite Valiant characters, other than Doctor Mirage, are Ivar Timewalker and Divinity.
Oh yeah, those are great characters.
And I feel like both of them would have interesting intersections with Shan that would not be anything alike. I've asked them repeatedly to let me ruin Divinity, and they just keep on.
I can't even imagine the Divinity Mirage interaction. That would be very interesting.
Honestly, the Ivar thing is sort of the one that I'm more immediately interested in, just because Fred Van Lente's Ivar run is
amazing.
One of the smartest, most beautifully constructed, and emotionally resonant comics I've ever read. That is a masterpiece. One of the best comics to come out of American comics in probably 20 years, and nobody knows about it.
Huh.
The fools.
That's absurd.
So I feel like you hinted at it earlier, but do you want to go into? You want to give us any tidbits on what you have in the future for Valiant? Is anything planned?
Right now, there isn't anything planned, but we were talking about something at the beginning of the year, and then everything happened. And a lot of companies just put new development on hold, and you even had DC canceling half its line and firing all these people. I have pots boiling at multiple publishers. It's hard to move things over the plate right now outside of creator-owned spaces. Even then, it's like, okay, like we'll take it, but like our publishing schedule is now substantially longer, and which of course it is. So at the moment, my focus really this whole year has been on the book market, where I'm doing young adult graphic novels for HarperCollins. None of which are out yet, but I got to I had 9 or 10 solid dedicated weeks to work on one book.
Very
and
nice.
It was wonderful. It was like luxurious. I just got to spend all this time with them and not have to constantly sort of like reacquaint myself with what's going on. I just got to follow the through line.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and that one's I can't talk too much about that one, but it's nice because it's sort of my first venture outside genre fiction. It's just a high school drama.
Sure.
And
Nice.
I think it might be the best thing I've ever written.
Ooh, well, we're excited to read it. So I'm actually super excited to talk about Vagrant Queen. I'm mostly caught up. I'm one issue behind, but mostly caught up, and I love it.
The most recent one that came out. I've been kind of unplugged
5.
from what's happening. I turn in my work.
Yeah, 5 just dropped, and 6 is on its way. But with the first volume, so just talking about the first volume for a second, it really defied my expectations in 2 major ways. Firstly, I was kind of honestly taken aback by Alita's willingness to tolerate and even Stelling, even though he betrayed her and lied to her multiple times. And I was also, even more so, I was surprised that Alita was willing to forgive all the people who deposed her family.
Well, she didn't forgive the people who deposed her family. What was she going to do?
Yes,
She didn't
hate them forever.
want to take power. She didn't want to be a queen. So what was she going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like at that moment she was like, I have it. I have my escape hatch. If I don't come back, they'll stop chasing me.
There you go.
I see.
And so it was about her finding some measure of peace, which at the beginning of the new book she's kind of got.
And you know, that's a very realistic way that a human being would respond. I guess it's like I've almost been brainwashed to assume that every character is going to have that eternal lust for vengeance till the day they die when they've been wronged. But
I mean, I'm always look, just like fuck them and move on.
right. It makes sense.
She was deposed when she was so young, and it was a role she was uncomfortable with even when she was a child. That's something that I actually really liked about how the TV show handled it. I didn't have a lot of real estate in the book to get into Alita's relationship with her mom, especially when she was young. But the movie really, like, not the movie, the show really like brings that out and gives it a lot of development, and it underlines that Alita's mom is a bad person.
Right.
Like, Alita's mom is a power-hungry autocrat who was ruling Areopa through her daughter.
Mm-hmm.
When her daughter was like, maybe we should try to help, she's like, no, there's a whole thing. You don't fuck with the thing. Like, Alita's a better person than her mom.
That's
And-
right.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah.
But not perfect though. I really like how you like still made her flawed. Where one of the characters was talking about how hey, your family, you know, took over using this mind control device, and she still has to rationalize, hey, we didn't use that for hundreds of years, for centuries. And it's kind of like, yeah, but you guys are still pieces of shit. And it's that human rationalization where you don't want to believe that you come from garbage. So
Right.
Yeah, I have this abiding belief that everybody sucks.
yes.
And I don't mean that like a joke. People always like laugh when I say it, but I'm like, no, I think everybody sucks. Every one of us knows how we suck.
Mm-hmm.
We know how we suck. We
Yeah.
all have those parts of ourselves that we look at and wrestle with and don't understand why we're not better. We have those moments where we are deliberately cruel, where we are deliberately hurtful. We all have moments where we think cruel things or say cruel things or do cruel things and then rationalize them afterward.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know we're doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even as a kid, I used to nip pogs out of other kids' desks. You know, because my family wasn't well off, and I wanted some new pogs. I really try in my writing to let my characters just be kind of shit.
Yeah, be flawed. Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
So, speaking of flaws and shit people, the bad guy in Vagrant Queen in your book sort of represents that privileged elite, to me anyway, the privileged kind of elite that manages to survive no matter what the political situation is. Seems very relevant today. The overall revolution seems in many ways righteous, and yet this asshole still manages to secure his position and pursue his evil goals. Well, what does he represent to you?
Okay, well, I don't think about what characters represent. I just have characters that I spend time with. I generally don't like to think about, well, what's like their larger symbolic. I don't do that stuff. So let me just tell you about Lazaro.
Okay.
Lazaro is a rich kid who resented not being richer. He was the child of power who resented that there was only so far he could rise. He is quite vocal at the coronation to his father, where he's just like, we are servants to a child. Just because we're not members of the illustrious house of Belior. And he let that radicalize him. And so he didn't join the revolution because of its ideals, but he did have a very concrete role to play in that rebellion. And so I wanted Lazaro to be someone we didn't like, but to be someone that we on some level just kind of understood the resentment that was fueling him, that he's someone who always wanted more and was never able to get it. So he turns his back on the nobility and figures, I'm going to join the revolutionaries and they'll appreciate me. And then they don't, because they don't trust him because he's a noble's kid. Mm-hmm. So they just send him out onto the frontiers. You know, they're like, you're too dangerous for you to be here. Nobody really trusts you. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do to earn their trust? I'm going to spend every waking hour chasing this deposed pretender to the throne down, because then they won't be able to tell me that I'm secretly a royalist if I bring them Alita's head. But it's all about his insecurity in his position, his feeling like there's a respect that he's owed that he never gets. He's an angry person who wants more than he already had, who feels he's entitled to a certain amount of authority because he led the charge on the palace.
Makes sense.
Hey, that was like such a poignant answer, and now I'm gonna start talking about Star Wars because you've got some cool throw like outlines, I guess, in that series where it's like, what a piece of junk and good blaster at my side. So the influence is definitely not a secret. But what are your views on Star Wars? Like new stuff, old stuff?
I like Star Wars. It's not something that I'm deeply emotionally invested. I am pretty emotionally invested in it. I'm definitely a fan. I've seen all of the movies repeatedly. You know, I'm not knocking Star Wars. But it's not like something that I'm ever going to get up in arms about.
Yeah, right, you're a normal person, not like a Star Wars fan.
That's right.
I don't in a movie, I'm like, okay. Like, I honestly went into Rise of Skywalker just expecting to hate it. I did not go in a generous viewer. And you know what? It was a good movie. I had fun. It was a satisfying movie.
Yeah.
Does it artfully wrap up all of the themes of the series or even all themes of its own trilogy? No. That's okay. I'm cool with Star Wars not being perfect. I have a harder time with like Star Trek, which is deeply important to me.
Yeah.
But I like Star Wars. There's not any of the movies that I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
So now I have to ask a follow-up. Do you like Saga?
Yes, I like Saga.
Yeah. I feel like it's impossible not to. I don't think I've found a single person that doesn't like Saga yet.
Saga's really cool because it kind of does this thing that I've been thinking about since I was a kid, which was like, all right, so like when people on fantasy worlds look up in the sky and see stars or moons, that means there's space. So what happens when people in a universe governed by fantasy rules and not science fiction rules figure that out? What are they gonna do? Like, what are the technical limits? Are there what can't they do? You know, and it's just been really cool kind of seeing that approach to it, where you've got, you know, a spaceship that's a tree.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed trying to parse the complicated political situation because I love that shit. I love Brian K. Vaughan.
Yeah.
Yes. Everything he writes is exceptional. I agree.
Yeah, it's a problem.
I don't.
There's a couple of writers out there who every time I read them, I'm like, why am I making comics?
That's right.
Why am I bothering?
They set the bar way too high.
Garbage.
Oh,
I can't
Just,
remember his name. I don't know if Judah remembers, but there is, and it's probably better, so I don't throw him under the bus. But we interviewed somebody recently who didn't care for Saga that much, and we were both kind of like,
I was
wow.
Like, have you lost your mind?
Question. So what do you think about Saga?
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't really plan for this, but since we're here, you mentioned that there's actually a handful of writers that make you feel that way. Do you want to mention maybe which other ones?
Morrison is... Oh, man, I love Morrison.
Yeah.
Wade, to this day, is able to capture just kind of like the honesty of comics in a way that I really like. Like he's got that old school kind of how he thinks about what superheroes are and what they represent, and that carries through in everything he does. There's just kind of like a purity of spirit to his work that I've always really clicked with. His Daredevil is
Amazing.
Fun of the character, and I once sat. I read Daredevil from 1998 until 2015 over the course of 3 months, and so I like Bendis's Daredevil, but that's a lot of misery. And then you get to Wade's, and it's just like this lighthearted book again that still acknowledges where it's coming from and the pain that's rooted in it, but doesn't wallow in it, which is a perfect. I don't want anyone to think that I'm knocking misery porn. I've written misery porn. Journey to Girl. But there's just always something very refreshing. There, Gaiman, obviously.
Obviously.
Kelly Sue. What Kelly Sue can do in a comic absolutely blows me away. There's so many, I don't even know how to get through them all.
Yep.
So, Volume 2 of Vagrant Queen is really cool. It's subtitled A Planet Called Doom. It's really cool so far. It wraps up on November 18th with issue number 6. I actually like this. I loved the first volume. I actually like this volume even better.
That's because it is better.
Yeah.
I'm a better writer than I was.
It's a fun story. Yeah. It's awesome. The subtextual, like, it seems like in the first one, it was very much politically focused. And the second volume almost kind of like takes on a more religious commentary.
Yeah, both books. Okay, so when we decided to do a second volume, I had to sit down and think. I had kind of like some like sci-fi adventure ideas, but I was like, none of these feel like a Vagrant Queen story specifically. None of these feel like everything that just felt like here's another Vagrant Queen adventure instead of here's the sequel to the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I wanted it to feel like it was worth it, and so it needed to build on what the first book did. The first book was very focused on the political stuff, and a lot of it's just that the regular stuff was only half developed in my head. Really just associated with it to the degree that I had modeled the uprising on Areopa on the French Revolution, and there's very absolutist religious claims made about the King of France. So I just kind of was like thinking about, okay, she's got kind of that kind of weird dual role. So I was sitting. So where was I? So I'm sitting down and thinking, okay, well, what's the next thing that's unresolved? What's dangling? And I was a couple of things. One was, all right, so they were going to be going to Earth, but obviously that didn't happen. And what's the significance of that? And two, how else can this pull her back in? Well, since the political role had been already just kind of, we dealt with that. I didn't want to just do someone else wants the queen, and you know, maybe they're kidnapping her so they'll rule, or you know. And I didn't want to repeat myself, so I just started rereading the book, and I got really hung up on the religious aspect, and really into something that I feel like many people do, a very complicated relationship to. If any have read my Twitter, I converted to Catholicism when I was 16. I left it when I was 31. I spent time in seminary. I am very aware of the good and ill of religion in a way that I'm still wrestling with. And so I was like, okay, so this is an opportunity for me to deal with also with the feeling of worship, with the emotional investment that we put in our gods and our prophets. Because I've thought about what that must feel like to be on the receiving end of that. When I was in college, I still might do this at some point. I had this idea for a book that was it was called Joe Winston is Not God, and it was basically, for some reason, a whole bunch of people started deciding that this one like manager of like a Pizza Hut was the new incarnation of God, and him just trying to deal with this bewildering experience. But I guess the reason I really latched onto religion in this one was the degree to which it can be a coercive force, the way that religion is already so tied up in politics, especially in monarchism. Oh my God, if you spend any time in Catholicism, you're going to run up against active monarchists.
Yeah.
American
Jeez.
monarchists.
Yeah.
Because it's all systems of control and like state theater.
Sure.
I struggle to find the redeeming qualities, to be honest.
I'm not going to get into all of that.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Sorry.
That's a whole conversation that I'm more than willing to have, but I feel like would not interest most of the people who might be listening. I mean, half of the people who might be listening. That was a dig at me, not you.
I kind of want to start a show about that now.
We could save that for Mag's part 2.
On religion.
I'd be down to. I have complicated thoughts. But I just kind of wanted to look at the feeling of being a believer, looking at what it's like running up against the learning you were wrong. What's it like having religious obligations foisted upon you that you don't know really how to manage? And it just honestly just seemed like a really interesting new vector for Alita to explore her own relationship with her past, which is what the book's about. It's her relationship with the past, which a past that she can't get away from no matter how hard she tries.
All right.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me back in.
So I have two questions for you. So one is, at the end, we're at the end of volume 2. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what to expect in the future for this title? And also,
we don't know yet.
Okay.
We don't know.
Well, do you have an ending plan? Like, if you were told just say, "Hey,"
I have a third volume in mind. I know where I want it to go.
Right.
Were it up to me, that would be the end of it, because what it is right now is really all about tying what the first 2 books do together in a really big way.
Right.
And you'll kind of see what it would be at the end of the book, because we unfortunately ended it on a cliffhanger, because we had assurances we'd be getting more that haven't materialized.
Nice.
Kind of a random question for you. I was reading Lost on Planet Earth, and I noticed Belle Isle is in that book, and I thought that was cool because I used to drink 40s at Belle Isle when I went to VCU.
You went to VCU?
Yeah.
I went to VCU.
I went from 2006 to 2009.
So we were there at the same time.
Yeah. Did you ever go to Carytown Burgers and Fries?
Yes, I went to Carytown Burgers and Fries.
She's like, stupid question.
Did you ever go to Slaughterama?
No, I didn't go to Slaughterama. Mojo's on Cary. 21 Cafe at its old location.
The Galaxy Diner.
Galaxy Diner with the fried Oreos.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a Richmonder. That's where I'm from.
It's the best city. I'm always telling people it's the best city.
I want to move back, and it's not in the cards because we're moving out west. Because I'm trying to get into more film and TV work. Which is great and everything, but man, Richmond.
Yeah, it's awesome. So another thing, I was kind of not stalking, but researching for this interview, and you mentioned that you always wanted to write the Silver Surfer, and I happen to be a tremendous Silver Surfer fan.
I'm noticing all your Silver Surfer stuff.
Yeah, I have a shrine up there.
I love Silver Surfer.
So what's your favorite run?
Oh, Dan Slott.
Oh, nice. That was very emotional.
That I've read in its entirety. Silver Surfer was always a character that I was fascinated by as a kid, but I couldn't find him. They didn't have Silver Surfer at Books A Million, where I bought my comics when I was a kid. But I've always just... Oh, and I watched the old cartoon when I was a kid for that one season it was on.
So underrated.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it was great. I liked it at the time. I liked the Spider-Man cartoon at the time, too. That's not great. 36 solid Giant Nightmare.
That's awesome.
But no, yes. Oh my God, I love Silver Surfer because I really love the big cosmic stuff, and so Silver Surfer is a really intimate entry point to an extremely big kind of story, and that's dealing with things from millions of years ago and things millions of years away, with threats from things that are aspects of the universe, and
right.
Is the power cosmic, and what is the role Galactus has, and I just really want to do a really fun cosmic Silver Surfer book.
I'm gonna lobby for that.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that.
It's not gonna happen. Marvel doesn't hire me.
Wow.
Maybe that'll change one day.
If they do, it'll be because they asked me.
Got
but
it.
I kind of washed my hands of working for Marvel, and I'm okay with saying that in public.
Okay.
I haven't had really great experiences there.
Oh.
And DC's been really, really good. DC's been an absolutely wonderful publisher to work with.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit frustrating because it's very organized chaos over there. And we all know, like, when it was just shuffling in all these different structures. But DC's treated me super well. But
Awesome.
But Marvel, which sucks. 'Cause I'm a Marvel kid. I'm a Marvel kid.
Yeah. That's
same.
sad to hear. That's sad to hear because I'm a Marvel kid too, and I'm like, oh.
But, like, every time I do anything at DC, I'm like, okay, I gotta do all this fucking research because I don't even know what the rules are. I don't know what the pieces are. It's like, okay, so Star Labs, are they good? What's good? Is Cadmus still a thing?
Yeah.
DC continuity is
Very.
very.
And I kind of love it.
Yeah. So I promise this is gonna sound negative at first, but it'll end positively, I swear. You are no stranger to internet toxicity, and I'm sure toxicity in general. Do you have any advice for people out there kind of experiencing this on how to rise above it? Because you seem to be a pro at it. You seem to just kind of be able to rise above.
Man, that's tricky, and the degree to which I'm a pro at it reflects the degree to which I'm just kind of calloused to it. I just kind of at this point know how to not care. But that's a skill, and that's a skill nobody should have to learn. When I have friends who are dealing with some kind of organized or just sort of emergent harassment bullshit, like when any number of shitholes go after someone, it's always a whole thing.
Yeah.
But don't respond. Just do not give the slightest indication that you've even seen it. And it's hard not to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And so frequently what I'll do if I think that this happens less and less now because I've, through following these strategies, gotten very boring for them. It's exactly what I was trying to do. I'll like go tag in someone who to go do the work of like standing up to them so that they're not just getting away with it, but I just let it roll off my back.
Got it.
I also take pains most of the, but that's kind of rare. It's just when I think that might be necessary.
Sure.
But most of the time, I'll reach out to like Renfamis or SJW Spider-Man and just say, just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. Don't tweet about it. Don't link to it. Just nothing.
That makes sense. I appreciate you sharing that. So, on a more positive, more comic book related note, do you have any upcoming projects that you'd want? Maybe we haven't talked about it, and you'd like to share before we close out?
Well, there's been a ton of them. There's a ton of stuff, and I have no idea when any of it's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been doing, like I said at the beginning, I've been really focusing more on like book market graphic novels and in adult space. So I've written 3 young adult graphic novels over at Harper, and I don't have any clue when they're coming out. One was supposed to be out in the spring, but the artist it's just not going to be ready by then, so we bounce that around. And so it's in a weird place because I have all this crap and I don't know when any of it will be out. But I'm just like trying to be okay with not having the constant string of releases. This was something I did deliberately, and this is just unexpectedly complicated emotional work. But of those, the one that I think we could talk about is the one that's been announced, which is a young adult graphic novel at HarperCollins called The Ajawaja. And they also purchased a sequel to The Ajawaja, which is a sort of, the subtitle is A Teenage Nightmare. It's sort of a young adult supernatural horror adventure where this group of kids accidentally unleashes the ancient demon god that once ruled their small Maryland town.
Oh, nice.
That is pretty cool.
And the complicated... Okay, so basically, without giving away too much, it's kind of like I'm just going to oversimplify and just call it a hate demon.
Okay.
And something that is fed by and fuels like shitty people being deeply monstrously, horribly, oppressively shitty to each other.
Yeah.
Like Pazuzu?
Sure.
That's the exorcist demon. Sorry.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's 2. You only get one more and you're fired.
This town used to be like beholden to this god, and it sort of sustained itself on just kind of really intense bigotry in this little town. And like they imprisoned the demon decades ago, and the town's been doing much better. And then they accidentally unleashed this thing, and it doesn't go the way you're thinking. It goes in a much weirder direction.
Okay.
But it's fun because I'm getting to do a story about that frontlines an autistic perspective. I have very extraordinarily high functioning autism, but it is autism. And so it was really cool trying to like get to tell a story the way that I think and process things, which involves a lot of dissociation, which involves a lot of fictionalization, finding ways to step back from the emotional intensity of things by relegating them to a fictional sphere. So one of the main characters does that a lot. And it's fun because I kind of got to do, this is going to be a weird influence for this book. And that's, I kind of drew a little bit from what I picked up reading Mouse as a kid in terms of the mechanisms of what the comic page can do. That you can do diagrams, you can do cutaways to non-diegetic things, you can, like there's that whole like chunk where it's no longer the present day of the book or the past of the book, but a different present day where Art is a human being in a mouse mask, you know, and there's all these like weird physical changes going on, and as he's talking and explaining his feelings. It was really nice to be able to get to stretch my wings on that one. And the book after that, I'm drawing just pretty heavily from my Stephen King influence. That one's probably the closest to us. Yeah, that one's like a kind of just straight horror, which is really great. I'm really enjoying doing her. I actually just wrapped another horror graphic novel a few weeks ago.
Ooh.
Which is my take on 70s and 80s slasher flicks.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. Do you have like a blog or personal website that people can see this whole list on?
MagdaleneVisaggio.com.
There you go. We'll make sure that's in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, NBs, that was Magdalene Visaggio. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us some of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hey guys, don't forget to wear your mask, wash your hands, register to vote if you're in the United States of America. Yeah, what's going on?
And be free. Follow our links and watch our show because you want to and not because of the threats. Thank you for watching Judah, Robo, and Ree. We talk about comics, movies, and TV. Sometimes we have notable guests, and sometimes it's just us. But we're also cool.